Back in 2016, we put out a call for nominations, trying to capture the diversity of background, of experience of the American electorate, the people that aren't currently represented in office. We got over 10,000 nominations. Out of those 10,000 nominations, we found Alexandria.
My brother told me that he had sent my nomination in the summer, but I was like, literally working out of a restaurant then, and I was like, there's no way.
Her profile is not what you'd think of as someone who should run for office, right?
I grew up with a really politically engaged and attuned family. We always were debating politics, talking about things, but we were never involved in the formal structures of politics.
We saw these signs of someone who's willing to sacrifice their own future for the good of others.
I remember some of the moments that I felt really dejected about politics, the extension of the Bush tax cuts in 2010, and seeing that the same people were financing all campaigns. And I was like, what is even the difference of a Democrat and a Republican?
That was the depressing part, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I, like a lot of working people, felt that cynicism, and I understood it very deeply. 2016 represented a re-engagement. That's when I started tuning in more to activism and really getting to the core of these issues. I remember that evening on Election Day in November. I was really disappointed and really sad, but I was not shocked.
She was at Standing Rock trying to figure out what her next steps are, just like a lot of people were. What do you do when someone like Trump wins?
And my experience at Standing Rock was so spiritually transformative. Being there in such an acute moral struggle, you really saw how it was more important than any material thing. And so I walked out of that camp and I was like, what do I do? And then literally that day, I get this email like, this is what you do.
So Izzy, one of the people that was working with us at the time, called, and it was scheduled for 20, 30 minutes, and it went maybe an hour and a half.
Like, you hadn't thought about running for office or anything at that point, right?
No.
You just knew you got to do something.
I knew that I had to do something.
We would call people up and kind of walk them through the platform.
We would try to call up folks that were like doing all kinds of amazing stuff, right? Every conversation would have a very awkward pitch at the end, because we'd like talk to them about like, oh, it's so great, you're like saving lives, you're fixing stuff in your community, and so do you want to run for Congress, maybe?
She was like, well, would you be open entering this kind of nomination process? And I was like, sure, because that's not a, will you run for Congress?
We felt the passion in her voice. She really wanted to fight for the big thing, and she got on a bunch of video calls to meet some of the other candidates that at the time were thinking about running.
There were so many other amazing candidates. The entire time I didn't think I was gonna be picked. In my brain, I was like, this isn't gonna happen, this isn't gonna happen, until Izzy called and she was like, hey, do you wanna go to Kentucky in 2 weeks? And I was like, oh.
We invited people to an in-person summit in Kentucky when we started getting serious about who we were going to run.
But Kentucky was, I mean, I found, at least for me,
It was a spiritual experience.
It was spiritual experience. It was.
What happened was just magic. All these people from all over the country, incredible community leaders, talking about similar problems they all faced, talking to each other, engaging, pumping each other up, pumping us up, you know?
That was like a super pivotal moment, I felt like. I just remember the first day we've created this network of people that put movement first.
Feeling like it was a movement and that it wasn't about me was the most convincing aspect. Being like, oh yeah, I'll do this because it's a bunch of crazy people and this will be fun.
Because all of you got into this like movement first, that's defined, I mean, your actions since you got elected, right? And everyone else is like, man, this is weird. Why are you doing all this weird stuff? Well, it's because it's a different, you didn't come in.
it's a different start.
Yeah. There's so much reaction to the divergence that our actions represent in DC, but really they've been consistent the entire time. It's just that
Just they weren't paying attention.
Yeah, just like the only thing that's changed is that people pay attention now. I've literally been live streaming my life and our political actions since 2016. I've literally been movement first and accountable to social movements the entire time I've been running for office.
It's really most people that change, right? Like they get elected and then they're like, okay, campaign's done.
There's a lot of people in the Democratic caucus. When we are courageous enough to just puncture the silence on an issue, they will start to move. Don't people realize that the most powerful position you can be in is when you are not materially attached to a position of power. If you're a one-term Congress member, so what? You can make 10 years worth of change in one term if you're not afraid.
People are saying, we've got to be more involved in our democracy. We've got to obviously vote and participate and go to town halls and go to school board meetings and all this. But I think the other part of that is, we've got to start running.
I think we at Justice Democrats have a chance to really transform the Democratic Party. Running in competitive primary elections in Democratic held seats is important.
One of the things that gets told in order to settle us down is, I agree with you. We have the same goals. It's great that everyone thinks these issues are important. We need to make them urgent.
And if you've got a 97% re-election rate, you get electoral atrophy. This is a reason why I think primaries are important for a party. I think they're important for democracy.
And if everyday people don't feel comfortable in their own skin at the most powerful levels of government, then what's the point?
How you typically run a campaign, you shift your entire personality sometimes
That's what the
around.
consultants tell you to do.
Yeah, they tell you to be a certain type of way. And what we're trying to do at Justice Democrats, and I think what you've shown throughout your campaign, is you don't have to do that. You can just be your whole self.
You can run as you are.
Yeah.
You can run for yourself, or you can run as a service to others. By the end of your campaign, no matter what, if you're focused on the right things and running as a service, your community will be more organized, educated, and engaged. It is a huge sacrifice, but that is what this perilous time in our democracy demands of us. With this administration, with the role of money in politics, with how our policy is being hijacked by the industries that profit from the despair of working people.
All hands on deck.
It's all hands on deck for our democracy right now. This country has only ever changed for the better by groups of people that were willing to put everything on the line for a better future. That's how we got the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement. That's how we got the labor movement, queer rights and marriage equality. It didn't happen by people playing it safe. It happened by people putting their whole lives on the line because they understood that this isn't just about us. This is about the generations to come. We have to give it all we got.
We now have proof. Running on a bold vision, running a grassroots campaign, being a part of a larger movement that is bigger than your own personal ambitions can and will succeed.
The House of Representatives is supposed to be the people's house. It's 435 people that are there to represent the needs and the will of the American people.
The only way that we're ever going to be able to change the structures of power in our highest levels of government is if we can get people like you that are closest to the community into the halls of power to talk about these big ideas, a Green New Deal, expanded and improved Medicare for all, ending poverty.
If you feel like, hey, why me? I don't have the background experience, I've never held public office, that's exactly why you should run, right?
Justice Democrats is trying to find people who have some examples of self-sacrifice, of integrity, real service that you've put in, more than how much money can you raise or who are the people that you know.
Everybody knows someone in their life that is already an amazing public servant. Nominate that amazing public servant to take their service to the halls of Congress. Give them that nudge. My brother did it for me, and he got me into this whole mess, so now everyone else needs to come along.